In a distant past, in the heart of a dense, sprawling forest, lived a humble family consisting of the woodcutter Arkan, his wife Mira, and their only daughter Yasmin. Arkan worked as a woodcutter, gathering wood from the forest and selling it to the villagers to help them face the harsh winter cold. Despite the simplicity of their lives, they were content with what they had and lived peacefully in their small cottage. One day, while Arkan was working as usual in the forest, cutting some wood in preparation for selling it, he heard a faint sound of crying coming from deep within the forest. He hesitated for a moment, wondering about the source of the sound. The sound seemed to be coming from an old abandoned well, a well that had long been a source of folklore and scary tales passed down among the villagers. Arkan cautiously approached the well, and when he peered inside, his eyes lit up with astonishment. At the bottom of the well was a small cradle wrapped in a fine cloth, shining in the sunlight filtering through the trees. Inside the cradle was a baby girl, indescribably beautiful. Arkan felt fear and confusion, but he did not hesitate to decide to rescue her. He hurried back to his cottage to tell his wife Mira what he had seen, and she was also amazed but agreed to help him. Mira tied a rope around the trunk of a strong tree and held onto it while Arkan began to descend into the well. The descent was difficult and exhausting, but Arkan continued until he reached the bottom. When he picked up the baby in his arms, he felt something extraordinary, as if this baby was not a stranger to him. Her wide black eyes sparkled like stars. Her fair skin was as white as snow, and her soft black hair flowed around her head like a halo. The baby stopped crying the moment Arkan picked her up and began to move her feet and hands as if she knew him. Arkan climbed back to the surface with the baby where Mira was anxiously waiting. When she saw the baby, she was overwhelmed with immediate love and tenderness. She took her in her arms and smiled, saying, "This baby is like the moon. It's as if she was sent to us from the heavens." They returned to the cottage with the baby and agreed to name her Lien and decided to raise her as their own alongside Yasmin. Where did Lien come from? Why was she found in the abandoned well? These were questions the family did not know the answers to, but they would open doors to another world full of surprises. As Lien grew, she became the talk of the village. She was not just an ordinary child. Her captivating beauty, especially her long black hair, which no one had ever seen before, attracted attention wherever she went. The villagers dubbed her the girl with the black braids, for her hair hung like the night, long and thick in an almost mythical way. But what intrigued them most was the strange red birthmark at the base of her neck, as if it were an ancient seal bearing a secret no one understood. As Lien with the black braids grew, fortune never ceased to visit the family of the woodman, Arkan. From the moment they brought her to their humble cottage, things began to change. On the first night, when Arkan and his wife, Mira, returned home from the forest, they stumbled upon something hard in the ground. When Arkan dug, he found an old jar half buried and filled with gold. It was like a dream. He could not believe what he saw, but the jar was real, and with it, good luck started to flow into their lives. Their simple lives transformed into ones of more comfort and luxury. Arkan used the gold to start a successful business, and they replaced their modest cottage with a bigger, warmer house full of comfort and security. There was no doubt that Lien with her black braids was their good omen, for fortune had followed them since her arrival. However, with all this happiness and success, different feelings began to surface in the house. Lien, with her captivating beauty and kind heart, was loved by everyone, not only her parents but also the villagers. Suitors constantly visited their home, seeking her hand in marriage. All this stirred intense jealousy in the heart of her older sister, Yasmin. Although Yasmin had a kind heart, the feeling of jealousy began to creep into her. She saw how everyone adored Lien with the black braids and how all eyes were drawn to her, while she felt overshadowed by her sister's brilliance. Yasmin began to change bit by bit, her emotions battling between love and jealousy. But will Yasmin remain stuck in her inner turmoil, or will these feelings lead her to make a decision that could change the family's fate forever? On the night of the village's annual celebrations, the atmosphere was filled with joy and cheer. The girls adorned themselves with their finest dresses, and the square was lost in the sounds of music and laughter. Among this beautiful scene, Lien with her black braids stood out, the most beautiful and dazzling of them all. With her long black hair and shining braids under the moonlight, she danced gracefully, like a butterfly. Her parents, Archon and Mira, watched her with pride. But while the moon was shining its fullest in the sky, a strange scream abruptly tore through the joyous atmosphere. Everyone stopped in shock and rushed towards the source of the sound, only to find Yasmin, Lien's sister, being held by a strange creature with a horse's head and a human's body. It was a terrifying sight that froze everyone in their tracks. Yasmin hung between the sky and the ground, screaming in pain as she struggled to break free from its iron grip. Yasmin, trembling, pleaded with the creature, "Let me go. Take Lien with the black braids instead of me. She is more beautiful." The creature suddenly paused, and its strange eyes roamed the place until they landed on Lien, who was shining like a bright star among the village girls. It threw Yasmin to the ground with indifference and started to stride heavily, yet scarily towards Lien. Everyone screamed in panic. The creature approached Lien, grabbed one of her long braids, and sniffed it deeply as if it held a familiar scent. It then moved closer, so close that Lien could feel its hot breath on her face. She trembled in fear, unable to move. In a swift, sudden motion, it lifted her in its arms as if she were a feather and vanished into thin air, leaving the square in terrifying silence. Her parents rushed to the ground to where Yasmin lay, grabbing her violently and asking desperately what had happened. After much insistence and pleading, Yasmin finally broke down in tears. She confessed with a broken voice, "Jealousy blinded me. I summoned the king of the Jinn to cast a spell to tarnish Lien's beauty. I couldn't bear being in her shadow. But I made a mistake in the incantation, and the king overpowered me. When he confronted me, I sacrificed my sister in exchange for my own life." Her parents were horrified by her confession. How could jealousy drive Yasmin to such a heinous act? But it wasn't over. Lien had disappeared into another world, initiating her family's quest for her and facing challenges they never imagined. Since that cursed night, Lien with the black braids vanished. No trace of her was found. Her father, Archon, filled with sorrow and desperation, sought every means to find her. He visited the village's wise mage, seeking his help. But the mage revealed a terrifying truth. The Jinn King summoned by Yasmin was no ordinary being, but one of the most powerful Jinn Kings, with no human force capable of confronting or overcoming him. The sorcerer said, "You must surrender, Archon. Lien, your daughter, is never coming back. The king of the Jinn is more powerful than you could ever imagine, and no one can stand against him. Forget what happened and move on with your life. Searching for her will be in vain." The sorcerer's words were just another dagger to Archon's heart. He plunged into deep sorrow, unable to accept the thought of losing his daughter Lien, who had been the beacon of hope in his life. With Lien's departure, it seemed fortune and blessing that surrounded the family had vanished too. Gradually, Archon's business started to decline, no longer thriving as it once did. Illness struck him, his health deteriorated, and the family slipped back into poverty as if the good fortune that came with Lien had vanished entirely with her departure. The house, once filled with happiness and love, was now shrouded in heavy silence and sad faces. Yasmin, the root of all this sorrow, was tormented by guilt and regret. She watched her father wither away slowly, her mother Mira looking at her with eyes full of blame and sadness. She knew that what she did was not just a mistake, but a crime against her family and her sister, whom she once loved. One day, while her father was bedridden, he whispered to her with words laden with sorrow, "Yasmin, what has happened cannot be changed. But you must always remember that evil brings nothing but more pain. If you had chosen love over jealousy, Lien with her black braids would still be here, and goodness would still fill our home." These words were like a sharp slap to Yasmin. She finally realized the gravity of her actions. After losing Lien with her black braids, Yasmin felt a tremendous burden of guilt and a strong desire to compensate her family for the loss she caused. She began seeking work to help them through their hardship, and their elderly neighbor directed her to the king's palace, where servants were needed. When Yasmin entered the palace, she was awestruck by its grandeur and exquisite details, but a deep sadness pervaded the place. The queen mother was bedridden, never leaving her chamber, while the king lived solely to manage the affairs of the kingdom, devoid of any apparent happiness. Yasmin couldn't comprehend the sorrow that dominated the palace, but she continued to work diligently, determined to improve her family's fortunes. One day, the maid who attended to the queen fell ill, and Yasmin was asked to fill in and care for her. Her duties included ensuring the queen's comfort, assisting with bathing, and providing company. During one such duty, Yasmin noticed something that shocked her. The queen had the same strange red birthmark on her neck as her sister, Lien. Suddenly, Yasmin screamed as if she had seen a ghost. The queen looked at her wearily and inquired about her outburst. Yasmin explained that she had a sister with the same mark on her neck and wondered if there was a connection between the queen and Lien. At that moment, something unexpected happened. The queen rose swiftly, as if she had regained her health, and began screaming for the king, who was in a crucial meeting with his ministers. She had never acted so rashly before. When the king arrived, he held the queen by the shoulders, trying to calm her down. She told him what Yasmin had revealed. The usually composed king was now in a state of panic and anxiety. He called for Yasmin, who was trembling in fear and confusion. When the king and Yasmin met, she told him everything she knew about Lien, how they found her in a well and raised her as their own. The queen cried out in despair. The king ordered a carriage to be prepared immediately to go to Yasmin's cottage. But Yasmin told him she did not think Lien would be there, as the king of the Jinn had taken her a few days earlier. The king, in a state of alarm and worry, forced Yasmin to recount the entire tale, which she did with all its harrowing details. Events in the palace quickly escalated, and the king became determined to find Lien no matter the cost. The king suddenly realized that Lien was none other than his lost daughter, who had been kidnapped by the cursed witch on her first birthday. It was an act of revenge because the king had ordered the burning of the witch's cottage, which was filled with dark magic and sorcery that had plagued the region's inhabitants. The king was shocked by this discovery and became determined to rescue his daughter no matter the cost. He decided to act swiftly and issued a royal proclamation on the matter. He ordered the distribution of a royal decree throughout the kingdom, offering a substantial reward to anyone who could rescue his daughter Lien from the clutches of the Jinn King. The decree clearly stated that the king would reward the person who succeeded in rescuing Lien with enormous wealth, lands, and high positions within the kingdom. This announcement stirred the enthusiasm of many adventurers, knights, and sorcerers who saw this mission as a great opportunity to prove their abilities and perhaps achieve their dreams. News spread quickly throughout the kingdom, and people started to flock to the palace to register their names and participate in this arduous mission. The king hoped that one of these heroes would save his daughter, return her to the embrace of the family, and restore the happiness and blessings that had been lost. News of the disappearance of Princess Lien, known for her raven-black braids, quickly reached neighboring kingdoms, sparking the interest of many, including the handsome young man Odysseus from the adjacent realm. Odysseus was renowned for his physical strength and wisdom, having spent his life studying various sciences, which earned him a reputation of respect and prominence in the circles of knowledge and wisdom. His friend Timur arrived and informed him of the tragic story of Princess Lien and the substantial reward announced by the king. Timur, who highly valued Odysseus and respected his abilities, persuaded him to go to the kingdom to assist the king in rescuing his daughter, particularly as the reward would be beneficial for both him and his friends. Under the influence of his friend, and convinced of the importance and utility of the mission, Odysseus resolved to head to the kingdom in search of Princess Lien. His journey was fraught with challenges, but he was prepared to face any hardship to achieve his goal. Before departing, Odysseus gathered information about the king of the Jinn and utilized his extensive knowledge to understand the nature of the power he was dealing with. He prepared himself to confront any danger he might encounter during his quest, believing confidently that he could find Princess Lien and bring her back. Odysseus began his journey with strong determination and an unwavering heart filled with hope for success. He aimed to prove his capabilities and competence in this mission by rescuing the lost princess from the clutches of the king of the Jinn and presenting her to the king. Upon arriving, he stood before the king and greeted him with the respect due to his station. He assured the king of his daughter's safe return within 3 days, under one condition: a secluded room in the palace far from any disturbances, with the necessary sounds, food, and water to sustain him for the 3 days. No one was to enter his room or disturb him with any external noise. The king promptly ordered Odysseus's conditions to be met. The first day passed, then the second, and nothing new happened. While Odysseus worked quietly, everyone else was on edge. Suddenly, it felt like an earthquake. The castle walls began to shake, and panic set in. It seemed like the end. Odysseus remained calm, sitting still despite the tremors. Suddenly, a strange creature with a horse's head and a human body appeared before him, a terrifying sight. Sparks of anger flew from its eyes. "How dare you summon me, a mere human? I am the king of the Jinn." Odysseus was confident in his abilities and didn't show any fear. He spoke with composure. "Where is Lien? Bring her here now, if you want to save yourself." The horse-headed creature laughed loudly, echoing throughout the castle. "Do you think you can challenge me, you weak human? Bring Lien here, or I'll burn you right now." Odysseus pulled a strange, glowing stone from his pocket. The creature recoiled in terror at the sight of it. Odysseus shouted, "I'll give you 3 minutes to bring Princess Lien here. Otherwise, you know what happens next." "Lien belongs to me. I want to marry her and will never leave her." Odysseus pointed the glowing stone at the creature again, and it fell to its knees in pain. Odysseus yelled, "2 minutes left. I won't give up Lien, even if you burn me. I love her and will marry her." Odysseus moved the stone again, causing the creature's legs to start disappearing. He shouted, "1 minute left." The creature cried and pleaded, offering gold, silver, and castles to Odysseus, but begging to keep Lien. "I can't live without her. I'd rather die." Odysseus started counting down the last seconds. The creature, crying and desperate, finally screamed, "All right, I'll bring Lien back, but on one condition." "What is the condition?" The creature revealed that Lien's sister, Yasmin, had summoned him to cast a dangerous spell to ruin Lien's beauty. She had introduced him to Lien, causing him to fall in love with her. If he returned Lien, Odysseus would have to hand Yasmin over. Odysseus considered the creature's words. Though momentarily hesitant, he remembered his mission was to save Laon, not to fall into a trap. He looked firmly at the creature and said, "Yasmin is irrelevant here. I've come to rescue Laon. Return her now, or disappear entirely like your legs." The creature roared in anger. "I will never give Laon to you." But Odysseus remained unmoved. He knew the stone was the key and used it wisely. Odysseus began to move the stone again, and as soon as the light from the stone touched the creature, a severe pain appeared on its face, and it finally yielded. In a voice filled with sorrow, it said, "Fine, I will return Laon to you." At that moment, the sky began to turn a dark gray, as if the clouds had gathered to witness a magical moment. A beam of light appeared in the middle of the room, and Laon's features gradually began to form. She looked as beautiful as described, with her long black hair and shiny braids. Odysseus approached Laon and hugged her gently, knowing that he had accomplished his mission. Laon, who had been lost in a dark world, felt safe again. But the horse-headed creature did not disappear. Before it completely vanished, it looked at Odysseus and said, "You have saved Laon, but beware, the story does not end here. The love I have for her cannot be eradicated by magic or force." Then it disappeared into the darkness. Odysseus held Laon's hand and said to her, "You have returned to your family. That is what matters now." He decided to return her to her parents without further complications, determined to leave the past behind and start a new life. Odysseus returned to the king, and everyone welcomed Laon with great joy. But something was glimmering in Laon's eyes. Maybe the story hadn't ended as everyone thought. Odysseus took his reward, and the king honored him. He went on his way, carrying in his heart and mind memories of the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Her beauty had captivated him, but he knew she was a princess in her high tower, and he could never reach her. Laon felt out of place in the castle, even though her parents were delighted to have her back in their arms. The queen had recovered, and happiness had returned to the castle. Yasmin returned to her parents and told them what had happened. They were happy for their little Laon, whom they had raised as their own daughter. The king invited them to the castle in appreciation for taking care of the princess and treated them with the greatest respect. It was as if life had returned to them with Laon's return. One night, a scream was heard from the beautiful princess Laon's room. When the king, queen, and soldiers rushed to her aid, they were met with a terrifying sight. Laon was hanging from the ceiling, her black braids cascading towards the floor like a waterfall. Her pale skin was flushed from the immense pressure, as if someone was gripping her tightly. She was terrified. Suddenly, a sinister laugh echoed through the room, shaking the castle. "I've come back to take my beloved, and no one will stop me now. I've returned stronger. Laon with the black braids is mine, and she will be my wife forever. No weak human will take her from me." The king and queen were horrified, unsure of what to do. Their daughter was slipping away from them once more. The king summoned the kingdom's sorcerer, who informed him that he could do nothing against the strength of the Jinn king. However, he could delay him by casting a protective spell on the room, preventing the creature from taking the princess anywhere else. It would be as if he had trapped him with her in the room. The king ordered his soldiers to summon the young Odysseus once again. The distance between the two kingdoms was vast. Meanwhile, Laon was suffering in her room, tormented by the king of the Jinn who was trying to force her into marriage. At times she would scream in terror, at others she would laugh as if she had lost her sanity. Her condition caused immense sorrow for both kings. Finally, Odysseus arrived. The king of the Jinn was attempting to assault Laon, forcing her to marry him. She tried to resist, but she was no match for his strength. Suddenly, Odysseus burst into the room, startling the king of the Jinn. However, The king feigned strength and said, "You won't be able to do anything now. You can't take Lion from me no matter how hard you try. I will make her my wife." Now Odysseus approached Lion, but was thrown back by a strange force as she was lifted toward the ceiling. Odysseus realized that the king of the Jinn had grown stronger. He took out the glowing stone and aimed it at the king of the Jinn. After a long and bitter struggle, the king of the Jinn vanished from the room. Lion fell from the ceiling, but was caught in the strong arms of Odysseus. He held her gently, admiring her stunning beauty. Her fair skin, long black hair that highlighted the color of her eyes, her rosy cheeks like cherries, and her red lips. She looked like an angel in his arms, a beauty he had never seen before. He placed her on her bed. The king entered the room, overjoyed, and thanked him for saving his daughter. But Odysseus replied with sadness, "I have not saved her yet, sire. The king of the Jinn has only vanished, not died. He will return because he loves the princess, and for the Jinn, love is worship." The king then looked at him and said, "Marry her." Odysseus was stunned and said, "But please marry my daughter and protect her from this Jinn. No one else can protect her but you." Odysseus hesitated for a moment as he looked at the king and queen. He had not expected this request, even though his heart was captivated by Lion's beauty and kind spirit since he first laid eyes on her. He knew that the decision to marry was not merely a means to protect her from the king of the Jinn, but a decision that required commitment and sincere love. The king looked at Leanne, who was listening silently, then said, "My daughter, the decision is yours. I will not impose anything on you. But Odysseus is the only man who managed to confront him and save you, and perhaps he is the only one capable of protecting you from the king of the Jinn." Leanne looked at Odysseus, her eyes filled with gratitude and confusion. She knew that the king of the Jinn would never stop chasing her, but the handsome Odysseus had proven that he could stand up to him. She felt something deeper growing in her heart, something beyond mere gratitude. She said in a quiet but confident voice, "Odysseus, you have saved me twice, and I am grateful to you. If you believe this is the only solution, then I agree to marry you. Not because I am forced to, but because I feel that fate has brought us together for a reason. And I know you are the only one who can protect me and love me." The handsome young man Odysseus smiled tenderly and said, "I will do everything I can to protect you, Leanne, and I will always be by your side." The king and queen were delighted with this decision, and preparations for the wedding began. But everyone knew that the Real challenge was not over yet. The king of the Jinn might return at any moment, and his anger would be greater than before. On the night of the wedding, when everyone gathered at the palace to celebrate, Odysseus felt a strange energy hovering around the place. The winds were howling and clouds gathering, as if something dark was approaching. He whispered in Leanne's ear, "My love, be ready. It seems that the king of the Jinn will not let us celebrate in peace." The roar of the king of Jinn echoed once more, and the winds howled through the palace, frightening everyone. But Odysseus remained steadfast, tightly holding the hand of the beautiful, raven-haired Leanne, his eyes filled with determination. Leanne trembled slightly, but felt a surge of strength emanating from the radiant necklace Odysseus had placed around her neck. The stone emitted a warm aura that protected her and shimmered against her fair skin. However, she couldn't shake off the feeling of terror that enveloped her. Odysseus said in a strong, steady voice, "Nothing will separate us, even if you are the king of Jinn himself. This time there will be no retreat." The king of Jinn suddenly appeared in the room, his eyes glowing with fiery anger, his massive frame filling the space. He was larger and stronger than before. He spoke in a voice dripping with malice. "You dare stand against me again? This time you will not leave alive, and you will not be able to protect Leanne. She is mine and will remain mine forever." Odysseus drew his sword and looked at Lien, saying, "Remember, do not let go of my hand. Together, we are stronger." The king of Jinn looked ready to attack, but hesitated for a moment when he saw the necklace around Lien's neck. It shone with an extraordinary light, as if shielding her from his influence. The king of Jinn snarled in rage and said, "That cursed stone again! It won't protect you forever." The king of Jinn lunged at Odysseus with lightning speed, but Odysseus was prepared. He used his sword to deflect the attack, drawing on the stone's power that nullified the king of Jinn's abilities. The battle was fierce, but Odysseus remained resolute, protected by the stone's power and his faith in Lien. In a decisive moment, Odysseus raised his sword high and delivered a powerful strike aimed not at the Jinn's body, but at the heart of darkness that fed him. The light of the sword and the radiant stone burst forth together, flooding the room. The king of Jinn let out a deafening scream, but this time it was a scream of pain and surrender. He began to fade away slowly, his eyes filled with sorrow and despair. He said in a faint voice, "I truly loved her, but you have won." The king of Jinn vanished completely, leaving behind only the sound of the wind, which also faded away. Lien collapsed into Odysseus's arms, breathing a sigh of relief as tears of joy filled her eyes. She said to him in a weak voice, "Is it over? Has he gone? Will he leave me alone? I am so afraid of him, to the point of death. I feel terrified of his return. Have you gotten rid of him? Tell me. Ease my heart." Odysseus smiled and pulled her into his arms, comforting her as he said, "He is gone forever, my love. Now we are together, and nothing can separate us. I won't allow anyone to harm even a single hair on your head." Her parents, the king and queen, stood at the door of the room, astonished at what had happened, tears of joy filling their eyes. The king took heavy steps forward, then said in a voice full of emotion, "You saved us, you saved our daughter. No words can truly acknowledge your deed, Odysseus." The celebrations began anew, but this time, the beautiful Lien and Odysseus knew that their future would be filled with love and peace, far from any other threats. Odysseus responded with a calm smile. "What I did out of love, my king. My love for Lien gave me the strength. I will never let anyone harm her." The queen approached, placing her hand gently on Lien's shoulder, then looked at Odysseus and said, "I always dreamed of seeing my daughter in the hands of a strong, loving, and caring man like you. I am happy that she has found the happiness she deserves." At that moment, Lien's adoptive parents, who raised her as their own and were invited to the celebration by the king, stood humbly in the corner, filled with happiness and pride in Lien's place. The king approached them and said, "You deserve all the honor and respect. You raised Lien as if she were your daughter and protected her with your lives. I am deeply grateful to you." The man who raised her responded humbly, "We loved her as we love our own daughter and always will. We are proud of her today." Lien hugged her adoptive parents warmly, saying to them, "I will never forget your love and care for me. You made me who I am today." After this touching moment, the king ordered a grand celebration, not only to celebrate Lien and Odysseus' wedding, but also to honor everyone who contributed to this long journey. The palace was filled with joy, and everyone shared laughs and congratulations. On the day of the wedding, Lien wore a bright white dress that contrasted with her fair skin and the captivating black of her eyes. Her long, black braids were admired by all. Odysseus stood beside her, elegant and full of pride and love, mesmerized by his bride's rare beauty. The entire family, both royal and those who raised Lien, watched with smiles and tears of joy as this happy moment unfolded. The king, addressing everyone at the end of the ceremony, said, "Today is not just a wedding day. It is a day to immortalize love and loyalty." Lien and Odysseus have become an example of what it means to fight for love, and we will never forget this great story. As the sun set, the skies seemed to bless this unique union, and Odysseus and Jinn lived a life full of love and peace together, never again threatened by anything.